just at its infancy on the different backgrounds that some kids need. It's at its infancy, but it's a good place to put some money. Universal access. Universal access is let the kids bring their own device and have a lending library, which is a laptop and a hotspot in the library where they can check out. And I've done this for 15 years. And there was always concern about theft. And of the thousands and thousands of kids that I've impacted with lending library, I've lost one device in all my and that was a teacher dropped it in a mud puddle. Kids take care of these devices, and your kids will take care of these devices. So if they don't have a device at home, you can lend them. Recently, the ones we've seen, the average high school of maybe 2,500 kids, you may need 50 or 100 of these in the library to check out. And every vendor is willing to give you hotspots for $8 a month or something, where they can just, if they don't have internet at home or they don't want to go to a restaurant or someplace with free Wi-Fi, you plug those in and you've got Wi-Fi at the house. That's how you close the gap. It works. And the schools that do this and that do the BYOD, my favorite quote from a principal was, "This is not a big deal. This is not a big deal." As a matter of fact, there is good data that discipline issues go down, discipline problems go down, and the kids are engaged. Now maybe they're walking down the halls texting instead of pushing each other, but there are some good impacts of bring your own device. And when it's done well, and by well, the best district that we've seen, you go in and every classroom you go in has a stoplight, red, yellow, green. This is a very, very simple thing that you can do. If it's a red day, there is no technology being used. The kids know. If it's a yellow day, you can use it for instructional purposes or when the teacher says. If it's a green day, you can use it anytime you want. And the teacher at any time, so this is easy for campus leadership as well, is to use that stoplight system. So there's just some tricks, and there's some really powerful bring your own device. Again, we recommend that instead of one-to-one, because when you go one-to-one, you bring in an entirely new set of problems to you as leadership as far as exposure. And so highly recommend one-to-one. We can talk more about that. I'd like to stop and ask if you have questions.
Yes. My question is, help me understand the lending library.
Yes.
So I heard you say in a high school you might have 50 to 100 laptops or devices with a hotspot that kids would check out and take home. But are they not using this during class as well?
They can. So they check them out and they carry with them. Some districts allow them to have it the entire semester. Some have to check it back in every week. But yeah, you carry it with you.
Okay, so that was my other question. Are they checking it out overnight, or are they, you said checking it out for the semester?
Right. Some districts want it to come back once a week just to make sure it's okay. When I did it, I just let them have it for the semester.
Okay. If they're using it in the classroom, and I'm presuming that they are using this in the classroom, so what if they come to school and the battery is depleted? How are we providing electrical outlets to plug this in?
It's a good question. There's not a good answer. Most of the time, and that's why we don't do traditional laptops very often. We do tablets that have an 8 or 10 hour life. And quite frankly, the kids figure this out. And a well-trained teacher knows that if little Andy's battery goes dead, put him in a group, work with a group. And that's why the good BYOD school districts can handle those things, those inevitabilities. Because you don't want to put a electrical plug at every desk. That's cost prohibitive. And quite frankly, some of them have these little, I'm sure you've seen them in the airports and things, where you go in and put a nickel in and put your thing, where you go in and open it up, put your device in. It's a charging station. Lock it, take the key with you, go back and open it. And they're clear, so you can't put anything in but a device, but they're secure.
How many districts would you say are using the bring your own device? I'm just asking because we've kind of gone full circle on that.
Right.
We're not going to do it because there's too many systems for us. It's going to compromise the security, to we are going to do it, we're not going to do it. And now I'm hearing you say it's a good thing.
In my opinion, it's a great thing, and of all the clients that I have, if they're not doing a district-provided one-to-one, they're doing BYOD.
Okay.
And they're working around. But again, you can't do any of this until you get the infrastructure right, so that a kid can walk in, it hits the Wi-Fi, and they're on.
Yeah.
And that way, you don't care. It can be agnostic, any device.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right. How to integrate technology. The next steps for you, should you decide to go this route, is to form some teams of curriculum, special ed, others that localize this model to your district. The easiest thing in the world for me to say, do this, do this, do this, but it won't happen. You have to localize it. You have to make it within your curriculum. And I also recommend a blended learning strategy. The question was, how do we get the other 85% doing this? So we have the 15% that'll grab this. How do we get the other 85% to do this? A good strategy, proof of concept, pilot, rollout, is do the proof of concept. You put all teacher training on that LMS, all the required training on that LMS. In that first year, everybody has to get on it. If I could figure out a way to make everyone get on it to get their paycheck, I'd do it. You know, so you force everyone on it because they have to take the trainings anyway. And then the next step is you find some content that's free and good, and usually, I mentioned Rice University with their OpenStax textbooks, but there's a lot of free textbooks out there, a lot of free content. But that's how you get everyone using this system. And then you let them do their own thing. So, and that's not do their own thing, Dr. Hill. I'm just saying that you can put in templates, math templates. So I'm a math teacher, and in the student information system, when I log in, I've got this content. But I can also put in, from my personal website, I can put in some of my content. So there's a standard content, and this works because you have to let the teachers put their own content in some cases, because that entices them to use it. That's the gateway to get them to use it. And the districts that do this well have all their teachers using this, because suddenly it becomes relevant. So blended learning strategy, I talked a lot about that in the report. There's a lot of different definitions of blended learning. I teach a blended learning class, which in a very simple-minded way means to me all the content's online, as if it was an online class, but the student is in a seated class with a highly qualified teacher. You've got the best of both worlds. You've got your disaster recovery system that we talked about. And you can then move on. We also develop virtual campuses where if a child needs an extra class, maybe to fit in so they can also do band and football or whatever, you can have online classes on this LMS. That was very successful as well. We've done everything from online algebra to some of the history, other courses online. And during the summer, it was always very popular for the kids to get on and get ahead. And we paid a teacher to monitor this, just like adjunct teacher, if you will. So the blended learning strategy is being used in a lot of places as well. And what it is, it's a nice gateway into making sure every teacher uses this technology. And it works. But again, the LMS is the critical part, and I know I'm beating that to death. A digital review process, if nothing else, this is a true systems and processes. A digital review process then says any content that wants to come in is vetted through this process. And I just run through a list of questions. What is it replacing? How does it align to the district's curriculum? So the digital review process, we spend a lot of time doing digital reviews. And the rest I don't have to tell you. Communication's key, training is key, Start it small, evaluate, and adjust. I have no idea how many laptops you're going to need in your classrooms. But once we do that pilot, you'll be able to see how many are actually being used, and then it's very efficient not to buy that. I think you'll be surprised at how many kids will bring their own device. We were surprised in the Dallas area when we said to the very high poverty area, we have a reason to bring your own device. Parents went and bought an Android device. And one campus is actually putting it in their back to school packet, an Android device. So there's just lots of strategies to get, these devices are pretty cheap right now. Standard classroom configuration, that was part of the requirements. You've got great classroom technology now. You've got good projection, you've got good sound. I mean, in your campuses coming online, you have good interactivity, probeware, which is temperature probes and those kinds of things. We've recommended this standard classroom configuration. Digital content management strategy, we've talked about the LMS, but as you've mentioned, there's a tremendous amount of digital content out there. Textbooks, e-textbooks, free content, audio, video files that are really relevant to what we're teaching. And so the different systems that are being used, LMS, content management system, a license management system. So for example, a lot of the textbook companies will give you a PDF file of the textbook. And so you can put that in the learning management system, but you have to meter that. You can only, if you bought 1,000 algebra books, you only get 1,000 PDF files, so you've got to monitor and meter those things, and just to stay within copyright law. So that's a license management system. Social media management, tremendous amount of tools to manage social media, to monitor social media. I've recommended OER. This is one way to fund these things. OER is open educational resources, free content. There's a lot of free stuff out there that's aligned to Texas standards. It's not being used. So I highly recommend, there's a website, oercommons.org. That's a good jumping off space. And then content that's aligned to the accessibility standards. And I always say beware of geeks bearing gifts. And by that I mean, there's a reason all these content managements are free. They're building the same thing we want to build, which is some analytics about your learners. And my point is, you should know more about your learners than these companies. And so we really have to read those click wraps carefully. The digital content management strategy, this is just a kid with, and I remember my kids having all these textbooks in their backpack. When to integrate? As I mentioned, you're going to have to follow your upgrade path, and your new campus is coming on. And so there's ways to do that. We can Gantt chart out, we can Gantt out what the best way is, but you're going to have to follow. Obviously focus on instructional need. Some districts follow the textbook adoption cycle. As the textbook math adoption or whatever comes up, that's when they replace it with OER, use the IMA funds to fund these things. Again, all local decisions. We've talked about BYOD versus one-to-one. Does anyone want to talk more about that? Any more? It's a big topic. Everyone heard enough about that? Appropriate training. You asked about training. My best training has been it's called the Beyond Hardware, where the training is done on the campus with the teacher's computer on an issue at that campus. That's another way to get the other 85% involved. You have to train in cohorts. You can't bring the teachers out to a central location, train them, send them back. It has to be trained on their campus with their content, with their technology, with the cohort, with their colleagues. That's the only way to get the other 85% on. We talked about the LMS tools to mitigate cheating, and you talked about support. That's why one-to-one is hard, because you got to triple your support. What we found with the well-done BYOD, you don't have to add much more support than you have now, other than in the networking. I think that was your question, Mr. Isom, on how do you staff this. Some districts have a help desk or a person sitting in the library. Some at each campus. Some are using paraprofessionals. Some have a fully certified teacher doing it at each campus. The models are endless that are going on out there, but you have to have some campus-based support, because if that teacher's standing there in front of 25 or 30 kids and something goes wrong, that's it. And evaluating your progress, there's a lot of tools now that give you good dashboards on what's being used. And it's not 18-month later autopsy data, it's real-time analytics of what's going on, what went on today. Be happy to show that if anyone wants to see a dashboard. And then the last slide is simply a review of these same strategic goals. This is what we're recommending. Our goal tonight was to solicit your input on these goals. Our next step is to get community feedback, localize these strategies to Fort Bend, and bring back a final strategic plan by the middle of February. And that's my presentation. Be happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. And I would like to see what you mean by those analytics, like if you can flash something up there.
I do. I have them up already.
One of our goals often as a board is to understand what's happening with our investment. And we struggle with knowing how it's being used, what's happening, what's the reality.
So there's IT analytics. There's some very basic analytics. We can monitor how many devices are being used. I've asked the permission of one of my clients if I could use this. This is just an example of, let's see which one this is. This is the number of kids this is the number of hits on the BYOD networks. So you can monitor, this is real time. This isn't real time, but I mean, we monitor it real time. And it's very simple. This is an example of laptop use, district-owned laptop use over time by campus. I know it's hard to see, but it runs along. And you can always tell when something's going on because there's always a blip of use. And so this is really interesting to watch when stuff is being used in the classroom. And so you can drill down into this then and say which campus, which classroom is doing it. Not in a Big Brother way, but in what's being used. Let's see, another one is, this is kind of interesting. This is some analytics on a learning management system and which departments are using it most at a high school in Central Texas. That may be hard to see, but the more they're using it, the bigger the circle is. So you can see you can monitor who's using the LMS and are they looking at the videos, are they not? And we've found with the videos, we learned something really interesting, that the kids aren't watching the videos at 1 speed. They're going to 1.5 and 2 speeds almost all the time to watch the videos and the lectures. Almost exclusively. Which means we're probably boring them or something, I don't know. But that was kind of an interesting finding. We can also do the same thing. This again is a dashboard of LMS use by course. Again, you can drill down and see some things. Time of day of mobile device usage. That starts at 6:59 a.m. is the first spike, and pretty much what you would expect. And again, you can drill down by the different areas of the building. And this is simply the BYOD network, what by campus, how much traffic is going across the Bring Your Own Device network, because it's critical. And you can do predictive. Once you have these things, then you can start predicting when to buy the next amount of bandwidth, when to, when I did this once, and I flatlined across the entire campus for weeks, and I just did a bad job of training. And so I figured it out. I went back and did better training, and then it goes up. So it doesn't have to be a punitive thing. It's just insight.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else have any other questions, or Mr. George?
I think I like the dashboard because many times we invest money in different things, and, you know, at
Yeah.
the end, we don't know who is using what and when and where, and what is the, because in a corporate world, it doesn't work like that. So we have to know where the money going, what is
Yes.
the, you know, what we are getting out of it. But these dashboards are giving so much precise information. I think it helps us to better even understand the problem, and, you know, if there is one. And I like the fact that. And also, what is the time frame you're looking at to implement something like, it's hard to say, but, you know, let's say once you're ready to start implementing in a district of our size, what's the time frame you're looking at to?
A lot depends on that energy in the system, but I highly recommend the first pilot, that use it as a pilot to get the teacher training online, the required teacher training. Every teacher has to go through required training. Get that online in a fall timeframe, let's just say fall of 2016. I know that staff is looking at different learning management systems now, and so you could have one in place and then start with your next pilot group, which may be high school. Again, you have to follow the high school. You have to start at the high schools because of your network. And you could start with a cohort in the high schools the next year. And, you know, a district this size is 5 years.
And I assume that, you know, this dashboard can be available at different level, right? A teacher,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's
a
right.
teacher could look at specifically about that particular class, how many are using what, when, and where,
Yes.
which is absolutely, I think, so at different level, it can be integrated, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Pham, where are we with our network upgrades?
So we have turned up the Wi-Fi for about 4 high school right now. We have Kempner, Clements, Dulles, and Willow Ridge. And we're working on getting the rest of the high school up and running probably within the next 2-3 months. So,
So we'll have them all covered then by the end of this school year?
yes, sir. High school will be covered by the end of the school year. And we're going to start middle school starting probably February, March timeframe.
Okay. So you just mentioned that there's several of these LMS vendors out there.
Yes.
Wouldn't it make sense to kind of go with the one that's associated with school wires? That just bought school wires?
It, logic dictates that way. However, we have to make sure that we are, it is supportable by our staff. And we want to make sure that we work with our curriculum and instruction folks, make sure that we get what their needs are. Because most importantly, what we want to do is look for a curriculum management system that will be integrated with the LMS, not just a LMS alone. So our friends over CNI is probably the key to the whole entire puzzle.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions? Are there any other outcomes that you were hoping for tonight, Dr. Dupree?
No, ma'am. I think we've accomplished what we set out to accomplish this evening, and we'll be back to share more information with the board in the near future.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Burning, very
Thank you.
much for being here tonight and sharing all of this
Thank you. It
information with
was
us.
a pleasure.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is for the board to convene in closed session for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney. The board's now convened in closed session.